Look around my garage, just make it a quick film, but you can see I've pretty much settled in here. I've worked out the fuse box over there to give myself some power. Took a bit of time earlier on, but I sort of commandeered this this really cool bench, really. I'll probably end up finding out that it's some kind of historic bench, which I shouldn't be touching, but anyway, pretty settled in. I've already started taking things off. I've nicked these tables as well from over there. But I've already, as I say, started taking things off just to fit the blower on here. That's the next section. So that thing that I'm doing just there, and I've got to drill into here and then fit the pipe round and then the wing back on. But there's quite a few things that have just sort of come up. You know, there's quite a big water leak coming out of this thermostat housing here, but I do actually have the gaskets there for it. You know, but you just end up realizing that there's tons of work. But anyway, let me just quickly show you through here. This is where I found that desk. I mean, this is just bloody huge, this place, and I found that bench just behind this cage here. Okay, so I'm just drilling out a broken bolt which is in the heater or the fan housing for the Land Rover. So what I've done is I've already prepared it a little bit. So I ground off the top so it's flat with the angle grinder, and then I've used the tip. This is probably not the best thing to use, but it's working for me. I've used the tip of the Dremel, like one of these parts here, and I've just got it into the, I've just gone into the middle of that bolt as much as I can, so it creates sort of a pit, and I've done that so when I drill down using a very thin drill bit, the pit sort of guides the drill bit into the middle of the bolt. So it's quite a small bolt, as you can see, yeah, we'll see how we get on. I'm going to use a smaller drill bit and then work my way up. I'm not going to try and strip the or cut the bolt out. I'm just going to tap it using a tapping tool to fit a slightly smaller bolt in there. So, as I say, I've got quite a small drill bit. I'm not sure how big that is. It's probably, I don't know, 2.5 mil. So I'm just going to put that in there, and I'm going to start drilling down. And you can, if it's going off center, then you can like lean the drill at this early stage to sort of guide it into the center. See, the hole's a bit irregular at the top, but it's just me going, moving that way and that way and that way and that way, just trying to keep the drill bit in the center. You can see at the bottom of that hole, oops, where's it gone? That it's more or less in the center, I hope, of that that broken bolt. In fact, I don't think it is actually. It's to the top left, so I've got to move it. That way a little bit further. So that's all the way through now, and it's ended up being pretty central, so I'm quite pleased with that. I don't know if you can see with this light here, and it's actually come out pretty much central to that, so I'm, as I say, quite pleased with that. I'm just going to tap that with a slightly smaller thread. So I've just used the angle grinder to smooth off the top there, because that little bit of bolt that was protruding was just a bit of a mess, so I've just flattened that off a little bit, and actually you can see it's not perfectly central, so it wouldn't be, you wouldn't be able to drill that slightly bigger and then sort of pull out the leftover or the debris from the thread, because it would just, if you went any bigger on that, you'd just eat into the original thread. But for what I need, it's going to be perfect, or it's going to be fine, I should say. And I'm going to use this tapping tool, and I'm just going to make my way in with quarter turns. So you just get it started, and then you go quarter turn and then back, around, quarter turn, and then back, around, quarter turn. You should really have some oil in there. So I've just tapped the hole, and this is the bolt that I found, very small bolt that I found that actually goes into that thread. Fits in there pretty well. In fact, what I need it for is the little brackets for this blower housing. They go on here and here, and on both sides. I bought it from eBay, and of course the description was, oh yeah, it's perfect condition, and well, apart from having to repaint it, these two bolts were broken in the housing, so you can never go by people's descriptions. I'm sure that they don't mean it, that maybe they didn't see the problem, but it always takes a little bit more, especially when it's quite expensive, about £50 this blower, but they're only going up in value, so just a bit of work makes it usable again. Because that is the next step for me. I'm putting the blower, I'm drilling the holes in the new bulkhead and fitting the blower. Okay, so today's job is to remove the front leaf springs and just to check whether they are deformed in any way, because at the moment I'm getting the car leaning to one side, and I've been talking to Paddock Spares about it, and apart from telling me that they're out of warranty but still brand new, it's a bit frustrating, but I'm going to take them off and as I say, put them next to each other to make sure that they bow in the same shape, and then I'm going to swap them over and see if that cures the issue, because the manufacturer of the springs said that might do it. So that's the job for today. I've got the car up on jacks at the moment, and as you can see in this garage, the floor is not even. So that's another job that the owner of the garage is going to do for me. So he's going to fill in this sort of shallow pit with wood, just like they've done here. So that will make things a lot easier to work on. Because at the moment I'm having to put the axle stands at different heights just to try and get the car relatively level. But yeah, so what I've got to do is put the back wheels back on, and then move the axle stands to the front, jack up the chassis, support the chassis, and then also support the front axle from when I take the leaf springs off. These are the springs taken out in the same orientation as I had them in. These are to the front, and this is to the back of the vehicle. But what I've noticed is there's a bow on the driver's side, which is higher than the other side. You can see it if I do that. And then when you go to the front, it's exactly the other way around. So whether they both need to be the same way around, which bow with the flat part goes to the front or the bow goes to the front, I don't know. This is lower than this one, but at the back this is higher than that one. So if I was to turn them round, like that, then they sort of match. That one's still not quite the same. Still not quite, but I'm going to put them back in with the flat towards the front, but also I'm going to swap them round. So I'm going to put the left on the right, right on the left. Okay, so I haven't done much on the car for a while, and I'm still waiting, as you can see, for my floor to be done. It's taken quite a long time. I've rented this place for about 3 months now, and it's beginning to take a little bit of time. He's supposed to do it today, but he hasn't. So as you can see, it makes it pretty difficult to work on a very uneven floor. I have already changed the springs once, changed them over at least to try and get rid of this sag on the driver's side, but it hasn't worked with the springs that I got from Paddock. So they have actually sent me a new front set of springs, and that is what I'm going to try and do. Maybe just one spring at a time, start with this side, and because it's this side that sags, and if the new spring doesn't get rid of this sag, then I won't bother doing the other one. I'm still not 100% sure. It's got nothing to do with the back of the car, but that actually looks all right at the back. It's sort of equal. But we shall see. But the car's been here for a couple of months, and I've made some progress. I've fitted this, the blower and the heater matrix to the bulkhead. I've done some work on the thermostat, and I've done some work on the electrics on the inside. For those of you who don't know, this cold start light that shows on the dashboard, these two cables here, they actually go to a switch which fits on here. So when you pull the choke, this pulls this little switch mechanism through this pod here and ignites a light on the dashboard, which is there to tell you you've got your choke out still. So it's a warning light really, and I never had this since I even bought the car when I was 17 years and years ago, so I didn't know what they were for, so I took a long time to try and find out what it was, but now I know what it is. I can get one of those switches. But otherwise, I've still got an annoying issue here, as you can see, a bit of a leak there on the thermostat housing, which is really annoying. I don't think that the front bolt on this housing is actually going far enough through. It's getting very, very tight, and there's still a little bit of a gap at the top here. So I'm going to have to see what I can do about that, because obviously water is still leaking past, which is annoying. So there's that I've got to do. I've got to obviously do quite a lot on the wings, which are back here. I've got to fit the mud shields on both wings, and unfortunately the securing parts have completely corroded away, so I'm going to have to find a way of fixing those on. I've got to do the cabling. It's very dark in here at the moment. I've got to do the cabling for the lighting and the back as well. I've got to do that. So there's an awful lot to do. I've also got to strip down and paint the original sides, because I want to replace those modern ones that are on here. I don't really like those with the originals, and that will make it look a lot better, because it will have the angular windows. So that's where we are at the moment. Yeah, so it's very, very slow progress. As I say, I've got virtually no time. It's Friday evening. I've popped up here, and we'll see what little we can get done, step by step. So these are the two next to each other. I don't really know if you can see much difference between the two. This one closest to my foot is the new one, and the one above it is the old new one. I mean, when they look exactly the same, they seem to have exactly the same flex in them. I really can't see much else. I mean, down to the bow, it's exactly the same, I think anyway. So, I don't know, just put it on I guess and see what happens. I don't want to sound like a pessimist, but I'm not expecting much, I must admit. So, yeah, so I've taken off the spring in here, down under here, just with the jack. It's actually much easier to do one at a time, and then I shall see how we get on. Okay, so I've finished that spring, put that on, and I'm just looking. It's very difficult to see the level from here, but I don't know. I think the bumper's a little bit bent, but I think it looks better. I think it's only leaning now because of the fact that it's, I hope, because it's on that strange level. But if you look at the yellow stickers, hoping of course that they're stuck in the right place, same place at least, on the shock absorber there and the shock absorber there, and they look similar. It's a little bit higher on the right hand side, but I'm going to measure them from the base to see if they're sitting at about the same height. So it's Sunday the 11th of November, and I've just come up on the afternoon just to do a little bit of work, just sort of catching a couple of hours of work at a time. So what I'm trying to do today, I don't know if you can really see it there, is I bought a new loom, wiring loom, for the rear section of the car, and I'm just bringing in the cables on the passenger side, so on the near side, for the lights. So turn that around a little bit. Actually, turn it around all the way. I don't know if that's too bright, maybe a bit. So I've just taken this panel off here. That panel essentially goes in there like that. Take it off with a couple of nuts and bolts, and then this is where it comes up through the floor here. And I'm just swapping it off. Luckily it's got some connectors here to splice into the loom, or just literally connect into the loom. So we'll have to see if those fittings work or not. But I'm just going to tidy this up a little bit and then make some connections.